had over 100 people registered for the last open house. We have about 40 registered for today. So yes, it will be a little more intimate. I can also, let's see, get a little West Montgomery happening here in the background. We've got some beautiful sunshine and outdoorsiness happening over there.
Yeah, there's some places I want to be in this Zoom board. That's not usually what I say when I come to a Zoom room, so it feels pretty good.
Cindy looks like she's living a bug's life in the tall grass behind her. So in another minute, we will go ahead and launch into introductions and really get started. About 4 faces on this Zoom I've seen multiple times today in various conversations as we've been doing planning, etc. And I'm still not tired of you all, which is something I love about.
Wait, do you mean us?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anthony's still waving at folks. So yeah, we're getting close. I think in 1 more minute, we're gonna launch into our session here. I'll mute Wes Montgomery here and jump back. So everyone, thank you so much for joining this August edition of our Brightworks virtual open house, take 2 after our June one. My name's Aaron Eden, and I am the executive director at the Institute for Applied Tinkering, where we have our wonderful program, Brightworks, which is our K-12 school, and Tinkering School, which is our amazing summer camp and after school camp, and soon to be lots of time camp program. If you're not muted at the moment, I hear some sound coming through. So for those of you who aren't muted, maybe go ahead and mute, and then we can unmute when it's time for folks to speak. But so what I want to do is I'm going to introduce the team here, and then just frame a little bit about how the flow of this hour is going to go. And then I'm going to hand off, and Gaver and Mackenzie and others are going to do the magic of sharing the magic. But again, I'm Aaron, and tonight I'm going to introduce, first of all, Gaver Tully, who is the founder of Tinkering School and Brightworks. And Gaver, maybe go ahead and just say a quick hello, if you like.
Well, hello, everybody. I am talking to you now from my home down in Montera, just south of San Francisco, where this is the very yard that I started Tinkering School in just over 15 years ago. So
a historical trip at the same time. I love it. Thanks, Gaver. And then I'm going to introduce Mackenzie Price, who is the director at Brightworks. And she disappeared from my screen. Oh, she's moved to clouds. But yep, there she is. Mackenzie Price, also an original, if not the original collaborator with Gaver developing the Brightworks program over the last 9, now going into our 10th year. Mackenzie, you want to say hi?
So wonderful to see you all. Really look forward to your questions and getting to know you more.
You're also in a Zoom square that looks beautiful, so congratulations. Then I'm going to introduce Anthony Concilio, who is another founding member of the Brightworks community, been in the leadership of the school and helping develop it for all these years. He's our director of community, and then there's a couple other adjectives or descriptors to his title that he can share when he says hello.
I don't even know what to say after that, but I'm just going to say it's really nice to see everybody, and happy, God, what are days anymore and what's summer anymore, but happy sometime in the year 2020 as we all mine our way through this wonderful moment where we have to figure out so much. But it's really nice to see everybody. And some very sweet, familiar, big and small faces in a square to my bottom right.
And so Anthony, some of his titles are director of jokes and slowness and kindness and other wonderful things that go into his director of community um, title. Let's see, I also have the pleasure of introducing Justine McCauley, who is another founding creator of Brightworks with the rest of this team. Now our director of admissions and also assistant director of program, and a human being we sometimes refer to as the glue, who kind of keeps everything tied together and running. Yeah, Justine, you want to say hi?
Hi, yeah. Gaber is working in the place where tinkering school started. I am working in the room that I've been working in for 5 months. This is really exciting.
There you go. Another
Never
historical.
expected to say that in 10 years at Brightworks.
Really? Wow.
Glad to see you all. Thanks for coming,
Awesome.
joining in.
And then we have also a couple of founding or near founding families, I think, on here. I know I see Cindy over there in the desert, it looks like, who is just really a rock of our family kind of family works community in supporting the school through the family side of things. And I'm not sure if I see Elizabeth, maybe not on here, but also some other longtime Brightworks families and supporters. So it's great to see you all on here as well. Thanks so much for joining. So tonight we are going to have a little bit of a presentation on what Brightworks is in general, how Brightworks has evolved and approached the changes we're all wrestling with in the world. And as I like to think of them, figured out how to learn because of what's happening and not in spite of it, as so many schools are trying to kind of forcibly, stick with the same old routines. But how do we leverage this moment to learn from it? And then also, I just have to point out again, I work with a lot of schools around the world and have helped start schools in lots of different countries. I don't know of any school that has, in its going into its 10th year, that has 5 founding members. And there are other founding people at the school still as well, and other very long time people, not only at all, but of this caliber of people that understand this kind of education. So it's just absolutely astounding to me every day to get to work with people that have built this place and continue to do so. So we're going to share some stories, again, some of the ways that we've been approaching things. Justine is going to share what are some next steps if anyone wants to begin the application process, and let you know a little bit more about that. And then we're going to have some time for Q&A. We actually do have we're going to have time before 6 p.m., but then we've actually also, we will all stick around between 6 and 6:30 to answer questions as long as people have them. And we didn't schedule it to 6:30 because sometimes people won't join something if it's 90 minutes, but they will if it's 60 minutes. But we will be here for that extra 30 minutes for extra questions. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to the wonderful Gaver Tully. And if we're next to you in your screens, by the way, I'm sorry for how, like, he's the green shirt and I'm the black shirt, if you get confused with the similar hairstyle. But Gaver, yeah, take it away. Share screen if you need to, and
Okay,
can't wait.
great. Let me try this. We're trying a slightly new setup, but let's see what happens here.
Oh, by the way, as Gaver's doing that, I want to encourage you to use the chat to to ask questions. Wonderfully, parents and families that have been part of Brightworks for a while, sometimes we'll go ahead and just jump in and answer questions that people are putting in there from their perspective, and that's always super helpful. And then we'll draw from the chat list questions that we see coming up later on. Gaver, did I stall long enough for you?
I think so. Just confirm you're seeing our opening slide.
Yes.
Okay. All right, everybody. It's just such a great pleasure and always amazing to get to share this kind of collective work of passion that Brightworks is, with new faces, with new families, and to see so many of our current Brightworks families here too. I always, I like starting out with a sort of provocative question or a provocative statement, and that statement is: engaged learning is better than disengaged learning. And I love framing it this way because it seems obvious that that would be true, but in our current sort of environment of education, with a emphasis on testing, we've sort of stopped paying attention to what engages young minds and paid more attention to tracking what they're doing, regardless of whether they're remembering it or not. And that's where a word like better is a little bit tricky. So sometimes I say engaged learning is more durable than disengaged learning. Studies are showing that the things that we learn when we're fully engaged, when you're sort of, when you're in the zone, when you are losing track of time, those things stay with us for very much longer than the things that we memorize to take the test on Friday. That durability speaks to something that I think is even deeper and more important in a child's life, which is that engaged learning is more valuable. If we can remember it for longer, then we can apply it in a new situation later. And that time that we spent investing in learning is now paying off in many different ways, allowing us to make new constructs, to make new understanding by linking it to other ideas. That's really what learning should be about, is creating future value. So in that sense, I am convinced that engaged learning is more effective than disengaged learning if we're paying attention to the engagement of the student in the situation where they're learning new information. Then we're ensuring that that is a high quality, highly effective learning environment or situation. So really looking at this more holistically, I like to say engaged learning is building the foundations and habits of lifelong learning, rational thinking, and expanding creative capacity more than disengaged learning does. And for the sake of something that we might remember after this conversation, engaged learning is better than disengaged learning. And this was never made more clear to me than at the very start of my journey through education. My project back here in 2005 in my front yard, where these 8 students came and spent a week with me doing amazing things. And that project, that sort of just experiment of trying out starting a summer camp 15 years ago, really showed me what can happen when we start to create opportunities for kids to build things that are bigger than they are, to commit to a project with more tenacity and energy than they have to anything previously. One of the ways we did that was by just giving them 10 hours a day to work on it, because I wasn't keeping track of the schedule and I was used to working in .com startups. I thought everybody worked 10 hours a day, and it was only later that my friends and educators said, you know, that's not a normal work day for a child. And well, it took us all week to go from building this bridge to building this roller coaster, which has 120 feet of track.
3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go!
This may well have been may well have been the most dangerous roller coaster in California at the time. But as a culminating event, it left an impression on me and those students that were there that summer. And when they made their parents ride on it, you could see a transformation in both in their parents, in their perception of what their child was capable of, and in the child looking at the honest and true amazement of their parent as they rode down this rickety little wooden roller coaster was compelling. And a few years later, at another session of camp, we were working on a project and it wasn't going nearly as well. And we had taken a break to go up and make dinner, fully knowing that we were going to have to go back to work after dinner if we had any hope of finishing by Friday. And in the middle of preparing this huge, simple meal, one of the kids that was helping me stopped while she was chopping all these vegetables for a salad. And I thought, when I heard the knife stop chopping, I thought maybe she had cut herself. And I turned sort of hyper alert and I said, hey, is everything okay? And she looked at me wistfully for a moment, and she said, I have never worked this hard in my life. Why can't school be more like this? And that was the first moment where I started thinking about the unnecessary difference between a fully engaging, immersive summer camp experience and what it might be like to be at a school where you felt that same kind of commitment to your work. So after rolling this question around in my head for a couple of years, I thought, yeah, why not? Let's try that. And we opened Brightworks in a warehouse over in the Mission District in San Francisco. And working together side by side with the kids, we built this space as a series of iterations of what a flexible learning space that was co-owned by the students, that they felt as much of a sense of ownership and responsibility to the building as we did, because they helped build all of that. And any one of us who went to this school can look in this picture and see things where, like, I remember when we put up that redwood tree. I remember when we moved those planters over there. Our school offers children a complete education from kindergarten through high school, but what I think is more important than that is that it offers them a place where they can truly collaborate in the construction and creation and delivery of their education, where they are partners with their teachers. You know, this space just highlights for me how different our lives are as educators and as students when we're in distance learning situations. And this summer, we've been doing some experiments with Tinkering School in trying to create really engaging tinkering experiences at home. This has also been an amazing opportunity for us to prototype new kinds of engagement that we can bring back into Brightworks as learning experiences for the Brightworks students. And one of the ones that's top of mind, because it just went live a week and a half ago, is called Tinkering School Mars Missions. And it puts kids in control of machines on Mars. And in order to do this, we had to build a model of a lava tube on Mars. And lava tubes on Mars are enormous. It's 1/3 the gravity, and these lava tubes are half a mile across and these huge vaulted ceilings. And a group of Brightworks students and Tinkering School students worked with me side by side to develop this learning experience where kids work collaboratively to solve problems on Mars, to create a habitat for a ship that's bringing astronauts to live on Mars. That's the narrative framework. there are two things that are amazing about this, and I just want to touch on it really briefly. One is, it's amazing to watch the kids in the sessions operating the robots, learning how to project themselves all the way into this remote situation and treat the robot like an extension of themselves. That is amazing. And the things that they learn how to do and the ways they learn how to work together, it blows my mind. And the other thing is, this project itself is a model of the kinds of projects we can do in a distance learning situation at Brightworks. Most of the contributors to this project were not on site. They were working from home, contributing, collaborating 3 times a day through Zoom meetings, coordinating, writing the scripts, hiring the actors. Everything that was necessary to put this camp together was itself a Brightworks project. And I think that that speaks to what you can do when you're confronted with adversity in an education, and looking at it as an opportunity for creativity to create whole new kinds of engagement. And I'm just so proud of the kids who worked on this. Well, Brightworks started with a bare concrete floor and a powerful vision that school could be a place that kids wanted to be engaged with and involved at and present at, when we can be physically present, more than anywhere else in their lives. I think that that's something that changes kids' relationship to education. And I want to hand it back to my good friend Mackenzie to pick up the story from here. Where is she? There
Thank
she is.
you. She's there. She's squinting at her screen, so I think she's
I know.
her buttons and things. Mackenzie Shout, she's
There
fired.
we go.
Oh, she's going to give us a keynote tutorial.
Whoops. We've been working on, yeah, perfect. That's it, Mackenzie, you got it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Gabriel. I love listening to you speak. It's always so inspiring. And what drew me to the school, and when we opened with that bare concrete floor, so 10 years ago, Gabriel gave all of us founding collaborators this sketch. And it was our job to take it and bring it into life. And this is the roadmap and rhythm of the Brightworks year. We call it the arc, as in a story arc, because we like to put our students at the center of their own learning as protagonists of their own story. And in this role, they go through a period of exploration. Then they find something they're passionate, they write a declaration, and then they get time and space to work on their own passion project before they share it with everyone. And I'm going to walk us through these stages, then talk a little bit about what academics look like at Brightworks, and then what I'm sure a lot of people are really eager to hear is just our distance learning and our response to COVID and what this coming year looks like. And so in exploration, what we want is a compelling question or challenge. And sometimes that question or challenge comes from the students, and sometimes it's one that us as collaborators bring to the students. But what matters most is that it is so captivating and compelling that the students just move forward under the steam of their own interest and excitement. And us as educators get to be the cartoon coyote at the front of the train, just laying the track of skills and foundational learnings and experts and resources. And so this was a project that came to us through through a collaborator, but the kids got so excited about it. Can you hear the audio? You hear that? We could hear those screams from hundreds of feet in the air. And I think what you're hearing is like the release of all of this built up excitement and tension because these kids had been working on this. They'd been learning about the atmosphere. They'd been calculating the weight of the payload and how much helium would be needed. They were doing egg drops to figure out how to protect the equipment and camera. And it got all the way up to the stratosphere, higher than any plane flies. You can see the curvature of the earth and the blackness of space. And the thing is, most any school can do a sort of weather balloon project, but I think what made this really special is that we drove with these kids all the way out to the Central Valley to recover our payload.
Oh, we found it!
What do we notice when we look at it?
And
The balloon looks like it got torn apart.
This has been to the edge of space. What do we see?
And I think, by the time we found the weather balloon, which took some doing, and got back into the car, it was about, we looked at the GPS and how long it would take to get back to school and realized that we wouldn't be dropping these kids off at their doorsteps until like 11 p.m. I think we had promised kids home by like 7, at least by bedtime. And we're driving down this dirt road, and I remember one of the kids being like, my bedtime's at 7. Just thinking like, oh Lord. And as we dropped the last kid off at 11, Ramses, who's actually Cynthia's son who's in here, he said something along the lines of, this was the best day of my life, and this was the worst day of my life. And it is exactly that we're going for in a Brightworks project. We want it to have that level of epicness that allows kids and their parents to see that when you work together, when you collaborate, when you share resources, when you give each other feedback, you're capable of so much more than you are on your own. And that's what exploration phase is for these big projects that expand our capacity, that build our skills, that introduce us to everything that we're capable of. And after that exploration phase, especially in the middle in high school, students get to declare their own projects. And I think that this is something that really makes us unique and exceptional. I think there's a lot of project-based learning these days, but I think allowing kids to use big swaths of the day to really work on their own projects is special, and we support them with structures of accountability, and a foundational structure of accountability is the declaration process. We ask them mentor works, people who are doing something approximating what they want to do in their own work, and think about what makes it good so they can build a rubric of what they're hoping to accomplish and their goals in this project. We ask them to create budgets, to come up with their safety plan, and source experts and resources and research that they're going to use. And it's through this that helps them form their ideas and then execute on them. This is a project. These students wanted to climb the rafters like in Spider-Man. And so they took apart several microwaves to harvest the electromagnets. And what's really cool about this project is that you're seeing like maybe one of 7 or 8 different iterations. They even named every single different iteration. And ostensibly, this looks like an engineering project, but honestly, I think the most important learning in this project was the collaboration between these 2 students and all the work that the stick-to-itiveness it took to accomplish this. After expression phase, students share what they learned. They share their work, they share their process, and they share their product, and educate the rest of the community in presentations and in a big expo night that we invite the extended community to. And so this is Soleil, and during the Spark arc, her band took Spark as social change, and she became really interested in the prison industrial complex and did a project where she partnered with the Prison Literature Project to do a book drive for prisoners, and also wrote a zine and had it placed in bookstores across the city to educate people about prison statistics. And so those are some stories to kind of illustrate what the phases of the arc are. And it's at this point that people are usually like, oh, that's really cool, but math. And something we've discovered is that, math is really a tool, and it takes time to build our capacity to use that tool. But our vision of mathematics is that it should always be collaborative, that it should always be beautiful and visual, and that when possible, that it is contextualized and meaningful to the project works that's happening. And so because of this, in our lower grades, we use a lot of math manipulatives. We draw inspiration from Math for Love, which is like a game-based kind of math, and also Joel Bowler, who does a lot of highly visual mathematics. And then in our middle school, we really are inspired by Desmos and mathematics that really ask students to ask deeper questions of the problem, and don't necessarily have one way to do it or one solution, and that they have to work together to build an understanding. And will make contextualize. So when this group was making marshmallow roasters and learning about the angles of incidence and reflections on mirrors so that they could make solar condensers to roast their marshmallows, we went to the only pool hall in San Francisco that allowed minors in order to figure out how complementary angles work when it comes to bank shots, because light bounces off of mirrors the same way that pool balls bounce off of the rails of a pool table. And then literacy, reading, writing. I love this quote: teach the writer, not the writing. Because first and foremost, we need to instill a love and a value, and like help students see the value of writing and reading. And so we steep in it. It's really woven into everything we do. And sometimes we have writing projects. So Justine, who's a YA novelist herself, brought us the National Novel Writing Month, where for the month of November, students put away their inner editor and they just write their own novels. And we support them with structures to shape those novels and feedback. But so writing is a big, and reading is a big part. Science, social justice, social studies, all of this kind of is wrapped into the projects, but we do allow for math and writing blocks that are separate to really build those skills. And so that is the arc, which brings us to the million-dollar question. What's going on with next year? We're really fortunate to have a building that's not the building that Gaver showed at the beginning, but rather this building over in the Richmond that we moved to recently, that is large enough in space, underpopulated enough in people, and has the infrastructure in place that we will be able to be in person 5 days a week when we're allowed to. But currently, I'm sure everybody knows, public health, both on the state level and the city level, have not allowed schools to reopen. So we are reopening in distance learning. And so, our goals for distance learning are twofold: to create a sense of community and give students meaningful work to do. And because we feel like that's the pathway to engagement And like Gaber says, engaged learning is just so much more durable and so much more useful. And we're in this amazing moment where there's so much to learn by just living through this moment. And so I'm going to actually switch over and share my let's see. Yeah, there's gonna let me. Do you guys see my web browser? Going to give you a little bit of a tour around our distance learning and what it looked like in the spring. Give you a little sneak peek into how it's looking this next year. But I also wanted to point you to this page on our website that has our fall reopening plan, as well as it will tomorrow have also our distance learning plan, which is in the works of being updated right now. When we talked about building community, we had a central website hub. It was one of the very first things that we put up to have clubs, big community circles, ways for the community to stay connected, not just in their class, but across ages, because that cross-age collaboration is something that we really value. And then each band, let's see. Yeah. So I'm going to show you an example from more of our upper middle school and then from our lower school. So we did a combination of both synchronous and asynchronous learning. And students would get kind of playlists of the things they were doing that week, as well as a kind of schedule that included some synchronous meetup times and then some of like open synchronous rooms that students could come to seek help, to collaborate, to get more information. And each day had different goals, and students with different schedules could do some of the asynchronous work at different times. Most kids opted to do it in the time that was allowed. And then let me toggle over to, sorry about this, guys. Azure Band. For our lower school students, they also had a combination of synchronous time, but also a bunch of videos that they could work through and rewind in to work at their own pace. So each day there was a different writing provocation, math provocation, and then a project-based provocation, as well as some extra provocations to do. And so the schedule for each day would have a synchronous meeting, some project or math or literature support, reading time, and another meetup at the end of the day to share out. So it was a good balance of synchronous and asynchronous for folks who needed both. And then during that time, we also transitioned to independent projects. We discovered that engagement was so much higher when students were doing things that they were passionate about. And so I've got some examples from the lower school where there was kind of a splintering. There was the group that got really into of their video games, and this is an awesome how-to battle cat site. So just in case you guys want to know, before you battle, Sylvester has a bunch of advice for you. And then May made a digital cookbook of all of her family recipes, and this actually became a beautiful platform for students to really share their own family family cooking tradition. And then in our upper school, I have to show a declaration what it looks like, and also these two students who collaborated across a distance to really like process the pandemic through song. And so this is their declaration. It has an essential question, their project pitch, their production, skill, and academic goal, the inspirations for their song, the research that they did to create their song, their experts and collaborators, the kind of tools that they'd use to record, master, and edit, the milestones, and then their weekly goals. And they did this, approval process with their parents, with their collaborator, and with their support folks. And then I know I have one more open. I can get to it. And huh. Oh, here it is. Yeah, so at the end of the project phase, we had our exposition on Flipgrid, and students shared their presentations and their projects. And I hope this plays, but Lucy animated this whole song. 500 drawings it took her to animate this song. Probably one, like, just an incredible project. And we really found during this time that some students, spent so much more time on their work than they ever had when we were in the building, because they had the time and space to really go deep. And so, yeah, I believe that is all I have for now. And I'm sure there's a lot more questions. So I'm going to pass it to Justine to share next steps, and then we'll open the floor for discussion.
Thanks, Mark. So really briefly, we are starting our school year in distance learning on August 26th, which is coming up. We are still doing rolling admissions and have some spaces in a couple different ages. So if you are interested in pursuing admissions, I would encourage you to fill out an application, which you can find on our website. And we will be in touch with next steps, which will, at this point, likely include a lot of Zooming. But hopefully can be, a friendly and really open and honest conversation about what we're doing and your hopes and dreams for your student in their next school adventure. So thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Justine, for sharing that. So again, we do have some spaces available in various age or grade ranges. So if you are interested, please do apply, and then conversations can follow about what the right fit might be. And then, so I definitely want to, we have a few minutes left, about 15 minutes left in the hour that's booked for questions. And then we do have some flow over time as well for additional questions if we have them. I don't see many questions in the chat at this point. So if you do have questions, you can feel free to type them in there if other people are talking, or if anyone just has a question they would like to ask. It's great to hear other voices on here as well. And in fact, yeah, you can just go ahead and unmute and start speaking if you'd like to. There's, I think, a small enough number of people on here that we can just go about doing it that way. So go ahead and ask a question if anyone has one. So questions not flooding in, and also feel free to type it. Oh, do we have a question? Go ahead.
Yeah. It's not so much a question, but just saying hi from Australia. We're a group of families that are wanting to start our own independent school over here, and we we have a history of working in an independent school last year for the last 10 years, which was a beautiful community school. And we're trying to start something similar like to that. And this is why we've sort of signed up today, just to see what you guys are doing, because we heard an interview on a podcast with one, I can't remember who it was with, but I think the person had worked in another international school as well here. I can't remember, sorry, the name, but yeah, so that's how we got onto your school, and we thought it sounded very similar to what we were wanting to start. But I was just I guess one question I do have, I know it'd be quite different over there, you know, with regulations and starting up your own school as to here, but how long did it take you from, I guess, having the idea to actually having the school up and running and having children enrolled?
Okay.
Favor.
Yeah.
And actually, you know what, Gaver, I'm gonna step in for just a second and love these questions. And by the way, how awesome that you're in Australia right now. Beautiful sunny day, it looks like. I want to actually, if it's okay, just pause that question and just because you know, if there are families in here who are considering, you know, whether they want to potentially join within the next couple weeks, I want to make sure we have time to answer those. And then that's a question that, yeah, we definitely, you know, can try to answer, and maybe even potentially in another channel as well. So apologies for stepping in and just pausing that for a second, and hopefully we will be able to get to it. But are there any questions, you know, specifically about the program if you're considering Brightworks for your family potentially in the near future? And if nobody has one offhand, one I know that actually just in our own community that we're asking at the moment is, you know, when in distance learning, you know, so much of, even when it can be wonderful to engage with each other in, you know, Zoom platforms and that kind of thing, or when there are resources that we can be accessing, you know, links to interesting things and that kind of thing. What's possible in terms of, you know, how do we still do things in the real world when we're not necessarily physically together? So Tinkering School, for instance, has been playing with these kits that we can send out, and I know Brightworks is putting together various materials to send home to folks. And there are ways to collaborate on Zoom when we're doing them. But I'm also curious myself in terms of what the thinking is of next steps this coming year to, you know, peeling off and maybe doing things in physical space, and how to make sure we're not always on Zoom, I think is kind of a big question, or just on screen. And I'm wondering if Mackenzie, you know, maybe you might be able to speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, and I'll answer it quickly because I also see Monet has a hand up too, so we'll take your question soon. Yes, we are preparing kits of compelling tools and materials so that students across the whole group have access to the same charismatic materials that a group can work on together. And so be that Arduino or agar plates or needle nose pliers, we want students to have all of the things that they need to engage with a project hands-on. So the collaboration can kind of be in kind of building upon each other's ideas through Zoom, but the actual work really happening with the hands in front of them.
Mackenzie, I would just direct our friends from Australia to check I sent them a private chat message so we could offline their questions.
Wonderful. And I see Michelle has a question, and let's take Monet's hand, who's it's been up.
Okay, thank you. So my question is about if you have many students with dyslexia and how you deal with IEPs, or if it's even relevant, because I don't know what your actual curriculum looks like, what the requirements are, if there's any special tools as far as like writing or things like that, and what type of control they have over who they work with.
Yeah. Well, I think, I think our approach to learning is very much individualized. And so IEPs are really built into what we do. We don't have any learning specialists on staff, so we do rely on the specialists that you've maybe talked to outside about what accommodations your student really needs. But we do really, I think that a lot of the reading and writing kind of supports that help people with dyslexia really thrive, help everybody. And so our like approach is very much informed by some of those best practices, like structured word inquiry and like Gordon Gillingham's work. And so we do try and integrate that into what we do, though we don't have specialists on staff. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and I would say also, Mackenzie, that a lot of the one of the nice things about both the individualized approach and then just also the way that we focus on academics is that we have less sort of pressure for any given skill or thing to happen in any given time window. And so we really get to work with, the pressure part of it can come out of the equation and really work with kids and families to identify what next steps for them might be in their own kind of progression and what they're doing, and not feel like they're, everybody else is doing this one thing that they're not, and kind of being left out of what's happening or whatever it might be. And so I think that just that time, the ease of kind of that pressure isn't necessarily there with kids, and that can really help them to make the progress they might have had trouble in more kind of higher pressure environments around that kind of thing. And sorry, Mackenzie, I think you were about to hand over to Michelle, or invite Michelle. Yeah.
Hi. I'm actually, Monet hit on the question that I was most curious about, so I'm so glad you called on her. I do wonder, I'm just so curious, just out of sheer curiosity, if you have been able to track any of your students beyond the school. I know you're only 10 years old, so you probably don't have a huge pool. I'm just, out of curiosity, so interested in hearing kind of what's happening with them and how they seem to be doing.
I'm going to pass this one off to Justine. I feel like Justine has some good, and maybe Anthony, who both have really great stories on.
Yeah. So we have students, there's a, of course there's a natural transition moment at 8th grade. And then obviously after high school. So at the 8th grade transition, we encourage all of our 8th grade students to go and look at other high schools, because we want them, even though we have a high school program, we want to make sure that if they're choosing to stay at Brightworks, that it's an actual choice. So every year, about half will stay and half will go elsewhere. And the transition to a more traditional high school and a more traditional school environment is rocky at the beginning, because there's tests and there's schedules and there's homework and there's like these different expectations, but our kids are adaptable, and they've learned during their time at Brightworks to see adults as like accessible humans that they can talk to if they are struggling or if they need help. And because kids are adaptable, they end up, getting into the flow of things relatively quickly. I think for most students, that transition into high school is pretty rocky anyway. So that's on the middle to high school level. In total, we just had our largest graduating class out of high school into college and beyond. 7 students graduated, which was really exciting. We're so proud of them. That brings our total graduates up to 14 total, which is really crazy. And again, it's a kind of the same thing where half of those students will choose to go the 4-year college program route directly out of high school, and half will choose to maybe do a gap year, maybe do community college, and then transfer out into a 4-year program that's then the 2-year program. But for those students, the key there is for them to really know what they want out of that next step. They're making the next step with intention rather than just going and applying to college because it's the expected thing. Even if they don't know exactly what they want to do with their college degree or where they want to major in, they at least know that there's something about going to college that's going to add something to their life. And yeah, so it's been really great to see them moving forward, and this year with like the pandemic, we're very curious to see what's going on with all of that. But Anthony,
we also have a parent of a recent graduate in here too.
Yes. So,
do you want to talk about your experience?
Yeah, my beautiful Cass is off at University of Rochester, completing a 14-day quarantine. And Brightworks has been fantastic for them because since about 7th grade, Cass knew that they wanted to send people to Mars, didn't want to go themselves, wanted to send people. And Brightworks has created this environment where Cass got to explore different elements of like mechanical engineering and chemical engineering in the projects, material sciences, in the Brightworks projects to really kind of refine what that meant. And so going through the process of finding the right college, it was really about honing in on the exact schools that offered what Cass wanted, like an engineering degree with creative writing and the ability to not get pigeonholed early, but really explore the world. And so, yeah, I can't say better things about Brightworks because I am so enthusiastic about this place. And part of that's because like Cass has really enjoyed their time here, and my youngest, completely different person, also, has his social, emotional, academic needs met, where in another environment, I'm not sure that he might have. I mean, I love this place.
Also, Michelle, hi, I'm going to jump in because I like you and I know you. So, ha. But I think something we look for, and we do have 3 transition points, like the end of 5th grade, the end of 8th grade, and the end of 12th grade, just your traditional spots. And families use this differently, but something we're doing with the children and we do keep in really good contact. We really do believe that we are a community. So we still get letters from kids who left here 9 years ago because they moved. We still get letters and updates from kids along the line. Gaber's Mars project is populated by a ragtag bunch of kids who have graduated 5th, 8th, and 12th grade, and it's like loaded. Like this whole program is being armed by young men and women that once went to our school and still are enrolled in our school. But something we really do, and something that I think travels really well, we really teach like what it is to learn and what it is to know yourself. And we feel those things travel really well. Our children, actually, if you were to take real things, they do believe that they have something of value to bring to this world. They do understand that it's important to let their voice be heard. They do try to work collaboratively with people and be empathetic. And so as we find, as people go into these next steps, wherever it might be, and then your odd families who have to move out of San Francisco or things of that nature, we find that what we hear back is that because they really understand themselves and because they've been in an environment to reflect, like self-reflection and self-care and self-understanding are constants throughout all the stuff Gaver and Mackenzie talk about. These are like constant themes that start with our 5-year-olds and run for every minute that you're at this school. So, while we have kids who are getting pilot license right now and high-grade artists, we also have musicians and basketball players and people who love to skateboard. But all of them believe they have worth and they understand what best makes them thrive and they know how to go for it. So what we found is our kids really transition really well into other places because when you have those tools in your tool belt, you're really at an enormous advantage. And I know for me as a 48-year-old adult, I would have dreamed to have those tools as I navigated the wilds of San Francisco public education. And like, so I think there's this beautiful thing that happens when the children really are an active part of their own education and growth, where they actually understand it. And so again, it shows up differently, and each kid makes leaps and little increments and giant bounds at different times. And our job is to just kind of always help them navigate through that chip. So it really does help for transitions. And as one last bonus point, our kids, when they meet admissions officers at other schools, they always get calls. Me and Justine constantly get calls where admissions officers are in disbelief because they feel they're being lied to, or they're being shown something that is phony or been made by their parents. And I'm just like, and just always laugh, like, if you feel those things, just ask them to talk at length about any part of this essay or this project portfolio they're showing you, and you'll be amazed that not only is this not fake, it's like beyond real. So it's just like, it's this beautiful thing when kids really have that skill to like understand how to explain themselves to the world.
Thank you, Anthony. I just want to acknowledge that we're just a few minutes past our scheduled end time. Again, we faked you out a little bit because we do actually have an extra 30 minutes, but we wanted people to know they could get a solid, a good amount of stuff in an hour. And so we will be around for another 30 minutes, but if you do need to leave, don't feel bad. We understand that people have things scheduled potentially at 6 o'clock and need to go. But we'll stay on and answer more questions, and maybe get to some questions from our Australian friends looking to dive into the adventurous world of starting educational endeavors. And so I think we have a question in the, do we have another question in the chat? Are you considering a way to continue with students that begin the program now and may be moving away from the SF area and therefore would be unable to attend the program in person when that becomes available? And so I think, we've actually gotten this question from people around the country and even outside of the country. Can we enroll in Brightworks now, since since a lot of the world's in distance learning? And we've had conversations about the fact that we will be moving to in-person when we're able. That will very likely and almost certainly be a choice for the families that want to do that, and that for families that don't feel safe doing that, we will very likely continue for much, if not all of the year, depending on the conditions in the city and around. A band or a group of students and families that don't feel comfortable being there in person, and potentially staff, where we do have some distance learning for quite some time for folks. The issue is that we don't know enough about how those flows are going, the ebb and flow of that, in terms of some kind of stability for someone that were to say, I'm going to enroll in distance only, and then continue that. Many people, from afar, many people who are in distance will be moving on to campus, and those that don't will be engaged in distance learning that might kind of, shift to a new space of what distance learning looks like during that time, based on who's still in distance learning and all of that kind of thing. And we don't anticipate that that would work very well for people that are going to just not be part of the local community. We certainly would encourage anybody that thinks that Brightworks is the right place for them while they're local to enroll. And for families that it turns out that they do have to move away, it might be possible at that time that a distance learning relationship would be able to continue and work well for you and the school. And we certainly couldn't rule that out. We just simply can't promise at this point that that would still be available throughout the rest of the year and be at, resourced as much as we would want it to be. However, for families that do enroll, if they are local, and they end up having to move away for some reason, we do have, families can enroll in tuition insurance, which basically means that if there is a life-changing event and you do have to move away from the school, the insurance kicks in currently and pays, half of the remaining tuition, or of what would be remaining for the rest of the year. And so you do have some flexibility to, to be able to make those kinds of moves and have it not be as much of a financial impact as it might be. So I hope that answers that question. Heidi, if you have a follow-up on that, feel free to let me know if that wasn't fully answered for you. Great. When are you planning to start the application process for next fall? Unfortunately, my child isn't old enough to start this year. Oh no. And I'm too old to do the Mars camp. Age is it's a limiting factor in so many of these cool things. And so, Justine, do you want to speak to next year's admission cycle?
Yes. Yeah. So we will be getting this school year started, and then be putting up the application for 21-22 in October. And likely, we usually do these open houses in person, and have tours throughout the school building, and plenty of parents and staff to answer questions. Likely, we'll be in another Zoom, but we're looking at different ways to show off the school, show off the campus, have parents be able to meet students and other parents and other staff members. So details to be determined, but October is the time that application will go up online.
Thanks, Justine. I'm seeing another question being typed into the chat. Let's see. Let's see here. So if anyone has a verbal question they'd like to ask while I scan the chat window here, feel free to ask it verbally. And then, yes, we will send a link to to this video to everyone once it's over.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Okay, sorry. This is Mane again. So my question is about classroom space since you've moved into this new building, and the children seem to be with little cohorts or groups throughout the day. Do they have to stay with their group? Are they free to move around? I don't know what this new space looks like since we just saw the picture of that one room. So can you actually just kind of talk about maybe what a day looks like, a picture of a day?
Yeah, so we'll we'll have cohorts that don't mix. Something that's unique is that in our middle and high school, those cohorts won't mix either, and they'll be with their one adult, and so we'll have staggered drop-off and pickup times to limit the number of people coming in and the adults coming in. We'll be doing screenings at the door, health screenings. You'll have filled out in your app the health screening questions and taken a temperature at home. When they come to school, we'll take a temperature as well. They'll wash their hands. They'll go up with their band, and there'll only be 2 bands coming at it, or that's what we call classes, 2 groups coming at a time. They'll go up the up staircase. We'll have one side of the school will have an up staircase. Another side of the school will have a down staircase because there's 2 staircases in the school. It's 2 stories high. I think something when we reopen, we are going to strive to be as, like an outdoor school, as much of an outdoor school as possible. We'll be, we're putting together hotspots and power sources and wagons and, carpet squares so we can even practice social distancing outside. I don't know. We're putting together we're putting together outdoor learning kits. But we're also, for those days that we have to be in the building, students will go up to their band. We'll be washing hands. Each band space will have a portable sink, social distance tables. They'll do their morning routine and what they do, and then there'll be a yard. There's a yard in the backyard that the kids can go out to for a mid-morning break, and then their lunch and kind of recess break. And that's also going to be staggered, so there's not mixing of cohorts and groups. I think then there's a staggered pickup at the end of the day, and that's the day. And so we are practicing the most strict guidelines that we can find, because we really take the health and safety of our family, our community, our collaborators, which is what we call our teachers, deeply to heart. And I think part of what we do as a school that gives kids power tools is that we are really good at risk management, which means seeing risks and taking all the precautions we can to mitigate those risks. And so I feel like we've been practicing this our whole life as an organization, and this is just like a big new challenge in how to practice that risk mitigation.
And to partner on Mackenzie, like obviously, if you would have talked to us in August of 2019, that would have been the polar opposite of a school we would have run, because there would have been kids running from room to room and intermixing. And again, one of our challenges, and something we've really been studying up on, and it really kind of happened mid-distance learning, we realized we really needed to start preparing for how you could do and have these kind of guidelines, but do it lovingly and address the mental health needs of our children and our staff and our families, because it is heartbreaking to think about all these things being associated with the school. And so as we take those challenges, we are going to uphold these guidelines, but within those structures, we are trying to strive for ways to lovingly and safely do interactions, ways to lovingly and safely have ways to let off steam or be playful or just love each other up. Because part of being in a one room schoolhouse of 83 kids for all these years is we really know and love each other. So we really are exploring and looking at, when that time does come, how do we uphold those safety standards? Because yes, our physical health is vitally number one. I don't want to make that sound like that's nowhere near, but at the same time, we just want to really make sure that we are doing an amazing job of helping meet the children, our staff, and our families just in this moment, and helping it be a moment for discovery and talking about our feelings and just sharing the joy of being with each other. So it's really, really like an important thing that we try to balance those two things out, because we really feel, I just want to take a moment to say to all of you parents, I'm a parent myself, and I just want to say right now, there's so much at stake and there's so much going on, and we just want to do the best that we can. And so we really applaud your questions and just your looking into options and ideas, because it is so important that we take this job of teaching with all these restraints as a challenge, and as a challenge to do something the best we can and the most lovingly that we can, because I think it's important for all of our well-being to approach these days under that spirit. So I thank you for your second question, Vinay. That was good.
Can I clarify something real quick too? My question is a little bit more philosophical. So say there was no pandemic, which obviously there is, and it's terrible.
Yep.
Would the kids normally be free, and do they mix in inter-age and all of that? Because that's,
Yes.
I like that idea, and I want that in the future. So I'm looking more at years from now.
Yep.
Is that...
I had that sense when you asked that question. So as I came in, we absolutely believe the value of our school is that we're a community of 5 to 18-year-olds intermixed and learning and growing and laughing and gathering things from each other. We're a community of adults ranging in age. We have grandparents and uncles and aunts and moms and dads and babysitters and everything in between. So we absolutely believe that is the way that education should run. And under normal guise, all the way up until March 13th of this year, that's absolutely how the 9 years of our school have been completely done. And as soon as it is safely able, that is exactly what we plan to return to. Again, none of us are Nostradamus right now. And depending on which Yahoo feed you read, and I could probably pull up 9 right now that could give us a ton of hope or completely destroy our spirits. As soon as that is available, that is the very core of our school's DNA.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think did. Lisa, did you have a comment or a question?
Yeah, I was just going to say that it's we'll be entering our third year at Brightworks. My son's actually on here mysteriously. He's entering 7th grade. And distance learning is definitely, the hard thing is going to be that he misses his friends and his community. And I mean, at the old school we were at, aftercare was something that I had to like beg him to do when I needed support. And he never wanted to leave. He was there until, 6 or 6:05 if he could possibly work it that way. And so that's going to be really hard. But as a parent, having our kid at a school he actually wants to be at, where most of the time he's engaged and enjoying learning, and when he's not, he feels comfortable asking for help, is such a gift during this time. I can't imagine what it would be like if we were at a school where he wasn't into it right now. So that's, I know that's kind of like a more subjective viewpoint, but it's a very, very solid one that we're feeling grateful for, that shouldn't be discounted in its value. So that's all I wanted to chime in and say, and thank you, Brightworks, for being here, and we're excited for whatever it looks like in August. It's going to be much better than it would look anywhere else in August. So thank you.
Lisa, I just want you to follow me around in my life because it would make me feel good and I'd be affirmation. Like also, you guys, as we talk about all this stuff, we really do want you guys to understand we take very lovingly and seriously this is a challenge and is a thing to meet with our best efforts. So distance, in person, hybrid, all those things we're going to bring our most loving and open attention to. So we aren't looking at distance learning as a thing to get through. We're looking at distance learning as a place to still offer amazing experiences and amazing connection and very wonderful educational opportunities. So I really think that's important too, because we think that every moment of childhood is a precious, wonderful thing. So the pandemic is not anywhere near enough power to stop like a child's day or a child's wants or dreams or hopes. So I really just want to put that in there too, because I feel that it's important that we rise to that challenge as families, as parents, as teachers. And so I think I saw Emily and maybe another hand behind Emily.
I just wanted to say it comes right back to what Gaver started with, though, that engaged learning is better learning, and that we have really seen that. So
Thanks so much. Yeah, Emily, and you got some help there raising.
I do. That's how I figured out how to raise my hand.
Yeah.
So I have a rising 5th grader who's going in. We're in Sunnyside Elementary, a public school, and we're really considering middle school options. And so one of my questions is how common is it for a 6th grader, a middle school student, to come into Brightworks out of the public school background? And I guess any response associated with that. My daughter Sylvie has done your tinkering school summer camp a few summers and loves it. We are, really inspired by the approach that Brightworks takes, but we are coming out of a conventional public school. So I'm just curious what that transition is like, and then also how often it happens.
Emily, you are in a very normal transition spot. Like I'd say 5th grade out of traditional SFUSD and or other private schools that run a little bit more traditional than us is very common. I think this year we have 3 to 5 kids, if I can remember right, that would be coming in at that exact point. And I say 3 to 5, which sounds small, but in a school of 83, it makes the band of 8 or 9 kids be populated by 3 to 4 new faces. So it's not uncommon. And again, as kids acclimate to Brightworks, like anywhere, there's an adjustment period, but usually we laugh because we there's like this October, the honeymoon is over, because kids who come out of public school are overjoyed to be doing project-based learning and no tests and no homework. And then all of a sudden in October, they're just like, oh my God, everyone here knows me. They're asking me all these questions about what I'm doing. Everyone's checking in about my projects. And so it's this funny thing, because like before, like our old director used to always laugh that in October, all these children who had transitioned in were almost having this other experience where they were so known and so being checked in on and so part of a community that they had to be like kind of talked into this like new thing. Like, no, this is a good thing. People know you, you're interacting and you're doing this stuff. But as far as like, just as kids leave at those points, kids often come in for 5th, 6th, 9th, grade and kindergarten are very much our most populated entry points for our school.
Just to follow up with that, my daughter's going into middle school next year, but I have a younger son as well. And I mean, it's not going to be a huge surprise that the past few months have been very challenging with the public school system, and we're not really anticipating being blown away by the next few months. He's in the 3rd grade right now. Do you ever have kids come in, in the 3rd or 4th grade, 5th grade? Like, is that something that ever happens?
Totally.
We accept kids at every age, every year. So.
And I think we're really looking at how our program is configured. We are getting a lot of calls from families in places. Truth be told, my son goes to a public school that my mom has taught at for 25 years. So I made a deal that he would go there for elementary school and come here in middle school a long time ago. And I too was not blown away, and just kind of reading through the lines and getting all the things that are being sent to us by automated callers and Vincent Matthews and, kind of bureaucracies. I just want to say, like, yeah, I think it's really important that you just look at those questions. So if these are things that you're interested in or considering, Justine is absolutely available to talk through your specific needs and questions. Because right now, I do feel, I feel from my own heart, my empathy for myself and all of us, just in this cooker that is the SFUSD puzzle of trying to figure out what school looks like for the fall.
And I would add too that, Emily, I actually work with a lot of families and learning communities transitioning oftentimes into homeschooling from schools, or sometimes the other direction. And one of the things that I think that what I love about Brightworks, and one of the reasons that I'm here working with this wonderful community, is that, it's not that there's the curriculum, which is academic studies and, information regurgitation, and then everything else is just the stuff you got to like get through to get the curriculum done. At Brightworks, really everything is viewed as curriculum in a way, right? In that, for instance, I do a workshop I just did this weekend at a conference called Chores and Screen Time as Curriculum, right? How do we identify what the needs of each individual are in a group, and then what the collective needs of the group are, and how together do we find a way to get those needs met? And so coming into a new community and having the needs of that perspective and that lens, and having people who are really there and have the time. They don't have the quota of meeting, different, fractions by Tuesday, right? They have the quota of, hey, how do we help our young human beings navigate the space they're in? And to really check in with what it's like for them to be that new person, and to have, first of all these wonderful young humans who know what it's like to be coming to new places, because they might walk into the high school band room and never have been there before and get greeted by older kids. So they're really amazing at helping kids understand what their needs are in this new space and how to meet them. And to my mind, that's the most important curriculum there is what are our needs in the spaces we find ourselves? How do we communicate those, listen to the needs of others, negotiate ways of getting those needs met? And by the way, if you ask people that hire around the world, that's the skill that they want the people they hire to have. They'll train them in how to, operate the thing or do the task, but they want them to know how to be able to speak, listen for need, and negotiate, pathways to solutions. So, it's great curriculum to come and join Brightworks and get supported through that transition. Great. I see some things in the corner of my eye in the chat. We've got just a few minutes left before the 6:30 mark, which we will stop the meeting at. Again, this is being recorded. We will send it out to all the attendees, so you'll be able to revisit any of the questions in here if you want to. There's a previous open house that's on the website if anyone wants to watch that and see if other questions were maybe answered there or approached from a different angle. I don't think I see necessarily another question in here, but yeah, Gabriel, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, it looks like Monet has raised her hand again.
Oh, great. Okay. Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yeah, anybody have anything else to either ask or say, or one thing Lei, do you have
Yeah, so I just want to mention a little bit about this community and the mix band experience we have. So I have a kindergartner. This was our first year here, and I think one thing we really liked is this mixed band experience he is having. So with him, his band, he actually is a K-1, and they are mixed with the 2-3 band together. So he got to learn a lot from the older kids when they do projects together. And also for the aftercare is all mixed together. And then for the community Friday, that's also a lot of things mixed together. So every day I just feel he's having so much fun at school, and oftentimes he doesn't want to go home when I go pick him up. So that's definitely one thing I miss the most. That kind of, now we are all distance. Another thing I want to add is the collaborators, they really care. So like they do a lot of things just not because they are paid for, but actually because they do care. For example, they, until this day, for the whole summer, Jalen's collaborator, Melissa, and they are still doing, she's meeting the band 2 times a week and just checking on them, hang out for an hour. And then there's another project time with Ruby and Mary Catherine. So it really, those things kept this gap time during the summer. We don't know what to do, giving them a little bit more connection with the school and help him to feel he's still connected with his own world. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thanks, Lei, for sharing that. That's fantastic. So we have a couple more minutes. One thing I like to do, if people are willing, is to just have everybody turn your mic on so we can hear everybody, and then just say, like, have a good evening, everybody, goodbye. We can all kind of sign off with voices together, a nice cacophony. Say hello to somebody you see in a square. Hi, Monet. Bye, everyone.
Hi, kids.
Hi. Okay.
Good to see you.
Hi, Lars.
Good
Yeah.
to see you all.
Thanks so much for coming. Our Australia folks, I think Gaver gave you a link to, hey, there's Lars. Oh my gosh.
Hey, Lars.
Lars, the hair's looking good, dude.
So long.
I didn't see a response from Australia.
You don't see a response from Australia? Let's see. Mark, Rosenstein, I think is our Australia friends. Maybe they've wandered off to do something fun in the sun. But yeah, thanks everybody for adding your voice to the whole time and then at the end here. And we're around. We'd love to see some of you join the community. Stay connected even if you're not officially joined into. Hey, Elizabeth joined too.
I've been here. Just
you've
off.
been there. I just didn't see you. You're off on another page maybe.
He's been texted into the box. It's
cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. And we will see you when we see you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care,
Thank you.
everyone. Bye.